Prior to arresting Reed, Bastrop police investigators considered Jimmy Fennell a primary suspect. They issued him 2 polygraph examinations. Police Officer Fennell twice showed deception when asked if he was involved in the murder. After a year of investigation, authorities charged Reed with the capital murder of Stacy Stites. Soon after, the state announced that it would seek the death penalty.
The court had made arrangements for my co-counsel and I to stay in Bastrop. We decided to stay in Austin and make that commute on a daily basis instead of staying in Bastrop.
Well, what's that?
I felt safer in Austin because you had a black accused and a white deceased, a black male accused and a white female deceased, and you had sex involved in it, and you had a white boyfriend who was involved in it.
If it had been just a normal citizen and she wasn't, involved with the cop, you know what I mean, this probably never came about.
Now, this trial has been front-page news here in Bastrop ever since it began 2 weeks ago. And even long before the jurors were given this case, a lot of the townspeople we discovered have already formed their own conclusions.
Most of the town, I think, is generally convinced that the jury probably did what they needed to do. And his parents and the people who are close to them remain quite unconvinced.
Rodney, hang in there. We love you, boy. See you real soon.
Now, at the beginning of this trial, the defense said that they could prove that Rodney Reed and Stacy Stites were having a secret sexual affair that could perhaps account for the DNA evidence found in her body. But no witnesses ever testified directly that they knew about such an affair.
I know that they had a relationship, you know what I mean, point blank. I've seen them together, They've been here at this house, I've seen them here in this house, together countless times. They were boyfriend, girlfriend. She used to sneak and meet them, and it was just that type of relationship,
She's been to my home. I do know her. So I feel that I should have been a witness for my son. He did not call Stacy's name. He told me that he was dating a girl that was engaged to a cop. And I went off.
If we would have been called as a witness, then most definitely we could have showed a relationship. But the excuse that they gave me is just that I was not credible enough, that I may do more harm to his situation, or to make him, they were trying to make him into this good person that what I'm saying could have turned him into a bad person or something. They didn't want any negative influence on the case. That's what they kind of told me.
Basically, everybody in Bastrop knows about them too. It was a secret, but not a secret, you know what I'm saying? They'd meet up on the north end, or they'd go riding around. And, a couple times I rode with them. All he did is, smoke, laugh, kid, whatever. Then they'll drop me off and go on about their business.
All I can say is that on everything that Rodney told me that happened, I was able to verify. So, as far as I'm concerned, Rodney was very truthful about what happened and how it happened.
Unable to afford a private attorney, Rodney Reed was appointed 2 public defense attorneys 2 months before his capital murder trial began.
So, did Rodney receive fair assistance of counsel? That's the $64,000 question. It doesn't appear that he received a particularly zealous defense. You have defense attorneys who, in their opening arguments to the jury, which is where you basically lay a roadmap for what you're going to present during your case, tells the jurors that there will be evidence of this affair between Reed and Stites, and then never delivers on it. Although she had evidence that she could have used, never delivers on it. As a jury, you kind of got to wonder about that. So that wasn't particularly effective.
May I say that with what they had, both of the trial attorneys did the best they could with what they had. And they chose not to bring up the affair thinking that it would harm Rodney more than it would help. Now that was their decision. I can't say that we agreed with them, but we worked for them.
He had no defense. His attorneys didn't work for him. So in my opinion, they worked for the state. No one could have made the mistakes that were made. No one. This was all pretty much prearranged.
One dilemma facing Reed's attorneys was the credibility of the testimony of Reed and his witnesses.
It wasn't until trial, I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to bug them or nothing. Maybe they are doing the investigation. This is what I was thinking. But then when trial came, I asked myself, well, where are my witnesses at? And Calvin told me, he said, look, we don't need no witnesses. And I'm like, what? He said, we don't need no witnesses. He said, we got this case beat. He said, they don't have nothing on you. I said, you're not going to call my witness? I said, well, what about my alibi? He told me, he said, if we call your alibi, they're going to mention about those drugs. I said, wait a minute, drugs don't have nothing to do with this case. And the next thing you know, the bailiff was knocking on the door, telling us that the judge was ready. Went into the courtroom, and then not too long after that, they was bringing this lady in, Diane Griffin, whatever her name, talking about the drugs. And I'm like, well, I told Calvin, I said, you should have called my witnesses. He never did.
One of the decisions the lawyer has to make is, will this witness work more for me than against me? And because Stacy's and Rodney's relationship was rather secretive, there weren't that many people who were willing to come and testify that, yes, we knew that they had a relationship. There weren't that many people who wanted to come and testify, we'll put it that way.
Reed's defense team claims that the lack of witnesses called on his behalf was a result, in part, of intimidating conditions in Bastrop at the time of the trial.
Whatever convicted Rodney had nothing to do with what went on in that courtroom. He was convicted long before he got into that courtroom.
There was one lady, and I don't want to go through with her name, but she was threatened when they found out that we'd subpoenaed her to come and testify. She was threatened with legal reprisal should she come and testify.
When I went out to her residence the very next morning, because this was sort of late in the evening, we had to get a subpoena issued. She was scared to death.
She was totally frightened and would not answer the door.
Well, she answered the door, and I was able to I almost lost my hand trying to get the subpoena served. But obviously they had told her that not to say anything.
Consequences.
So
Who told?
Someone in authority.
One of her friends, and I don't recall who, heard Stacy told her that her boyfriend had threatened her with killing her if she didn't tell Rodney. Cut off that relationship.